Alright, folks. Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、おかえりなさい。今日は103日目です。It is 100, day 103. Okay, let's get into our lessons right away. Okay, so, tomo. Alright, so we got the I think classic. In fact, I think if I had to pin the most common phrasing that is in most of my content, like most of my quote unquote immersion content, it would be omo, because I typically watch things like interviews, questionnaires, people trying to explain things, but they're explaining things from their experience and not necessarily dictating what is right or wrong, which is very classical of other forms of content. The vast majority of my content that I watch are people applying their experiences to make discussion and intellectual pursuits. Not that it's the best type of content, it's the content I prefer. I like hearing people's opinions based on their ability to explain and adapt their experiences. And then it's very customary for those individuals, whether they're Japanese or not, because in English, they will also use something that is akin to whatever becomes before, omo. Instead, in English, oftentimes it comes at the beginning. Like, I believe this to be accurate based on my own personal experiences. The following, right? Or based on my personal experience, the following. It is suggested that the following. So in this case, it's, and then when you listen to Japanese, it ends most of their statements. Like, oh, yeah, it has been a nice day, I think. So it would be kind of interesting if there was an equivalent of that going into it, but it does reflect a little bit of cultural or syntax related, like language things, if it becomes the beginning at the end. However, in English, it is actually flexible both ways. So there are people who say a lot of things and say, I think. So something like, that might be the most efficient way of learning Japanese, I think. So it still happens. I mean, I add something else at the end, like perhaps, as far as I know. So this is as far as I know kind of situation where I think the game is doing relatively well as far as I know. That's, or I can imagine something like that, which is not prevalent, in my opinion, when someone is not commonly in a role where they are held accountable for what they say to someone else, and especially in a consulting or an advisory role. So not a bad or good thing, more habit of practice. So whenever you have an interview, you can kind of tell what type of person you're speaking to. And I think that is very important for the host to understand that when they're asking questions, they can adapt on the fly. Is this a person who is indicative, have incredibly strong opinions, bold opinions, or they speak with suggestion? Because speaking with suggestion would be this. So, and in my opinion, since there are so many people who speak English, varying cultures, various representation, far more diverse than Japanese, still, currently, in my opinion. That's statistics-wise, right? As far as I know, right? Those phrases I use commonly. It is more statistically likely that you'll find people who speak dramatically in the indicative mood in English than maybe some sort of developing Japanese equivalent, right? I do agree that Japanese, especially even Chinese, when in public and you are asked to provide information or some sort of suggestion, it remains just that. It does not overreaching is a cultural taboo, in my opinion. And a taboo, not a law or fixed rule, because taboo is more like an opinion grounded in tradition. Trying to overreach your knowledge is like, I mean, there's a whole ancient proverbial text in Chinese that discourages one to overreach with their claims of words as opposed to demonstrating through merit, right? So I really like this. The hyper use of this could be considered as trite, who knows? I think from an aggressive, more direct culture, it could seem like this is quite passive. So what I mean by that is, if you say I think at the end of every sentence, like in English, and you are expected to be like someone who is exuding leadership or being decisive at very particular moments, it can make you sound unsure, right? That's in the context of a culture that has varying expectations. So there is like the to and fro play of this. And I do encounter that quite often, like in some places where the leadership is required to be decisive about a decision, and their speech was filled with I thinks, maybe, perhaps, right? There's a time and place for the appropriateness of the indicative mood, right? Indicative mood. And then there are times for the subjunctive mood. And oftentimes I do find that the subjunctive gets a negative stigma online, and the indicative gets polarizing effects. Basically, you're either right or you're wrong when you use the indicative mood. The subjunctive seems as disingenuous. Basically, if you say you think, it can be seen like, oh, you don't want to be wrong. That's coming from an indicative perspective. When oftentimes those who use the subjunctive mood are both fearful of the consequences of overreaching their data, and you can say that the same action does involve obfuscating or masking or smoke screening something that they are clearly aware of. In fact, that is, in my opinion, what happens in Japan and China. The thing is, it's culturally normative in Japan and China. You know, the whole idea of if you're upset about something, keep it to yourself. Take it home. Displaying it in public is not the cultural thing. So for every bad actor you can talk about when it comes to politicians speaking in English, it's not like we're not still human, right? So have to take that cultural normative filter out and still come to the consideration that despite having cultural social norms that condition our way of filtering actions, despite their similarities objectively, humans are still humans. So when you say you think, it is very difficult and dynamically complex when you're talking to someone to infer something without collective context, like sufficient context. And when someone says, I think, kind of need some context. Like if in English, say, in the future, right, it's a multilingual person saying I think, what do you think they mean? Because personally, most of my thinking that I use when I offer suggestions, the last week, every single day, I've recorded some long digression that offered very strong suggestions. To be forward about this and to elicit complete transparency, I was raised with Chinese values and thrown into the world of indicative dominant mood in the direct context of American speech. And the reason why I often says, take it with a grain of salt, this is my personal anecdote, statistics would suggest this, is because I entered a field that required to be exacting and accountable for what you say and write. So it is a combination of fear and combination of accountability and demonstration that I tend to offer suggestions. Yesterday, someone asked me, what is the best app to learn Japanese? And my response was a generalized comment that I'm able to make based on my experience. And I think one of the underlying principles of learning anything is what I believe to be true, which is whichever one makes you consistently iterative and refining. So whatever that tool looks like, if it encourages you to consistently do something, aka mitigate burnout, and encourages you to refine and iterate, that would be the tool. In no way can I ever think with confidence like this is the best tool. I think to me personally is asinine to make that comment to overreach and place my professional integrity. Regardless of language learning isn't even my field of expertise. I actually don't have a field of expertise anymore. So there's that. And being bold enough to answer a question like what is the best thing, I tend to reword it. Like if by best you mean what is the most foundational thing that I believe should exist in that tool, it would probably be consistency, a source of iteration, and an encouragement for refinement. Expansion is okay. I think expansion comes at a really, really close, like second or third, which is the tool must also lead you to the next tool, which is what the question that was happening with that person. When they said, this is how they introduced themselves. They said, well, I finished Wagotabi. What next? That's expansion. So oftentimes tools don't lead to expansion without the input of the person. So the hopefulness is when you use a tool, at some point you become interested in expanding. And that doesn't really happen online too often. But there are tools that do that. And that's really wonderful because Bunpro does do that. If you scroll all the way down, we're going to relate it back to Bunpro. If you scroll all the way down, there are things that Bunpro refers to that isn't part of their sources, like the Genki textbook, right? Hey Kim's guide. There are other sources. So it's not exclusive, right? It's not an exclusive thing where like most online tools don't refer to another companion or collaborating product. They tend to have those things, in fact, but it would require the honest effort of the person using the tool. Anyways, at least I think. Okay. To looks like it functions. It needs a nominal. It's like a normalizing thing. I call this normalizing thing, but it's not necessarily normalizing. but it's taking into account non-adjective and a noun. That's what I mean. It's one of those. And I'm trying to keep track of which ones don't, which ones do, to kind of see if there's an intuitive way that I can feel out this. Because instead of having to remember exactly which one is which, I kind of want to build a intuition where, oh yeah, this is a phrase that definitely requires a dot or a na or something. Although this is a dot, so that's different. To express that you think something in Japanese, the common expression to omou, I tend to kind of pronounce it tomo when, like, if it is nakadaka, which I think this is nakadaka, is regularly used. Again, if that's not native sounding or Japanese, that's perfectly fine with me. As you can probably guess, this is just a combination of the particle to plus the verb omo. To omo can be used for any verb, the adjective, non-adjective, or noun, but will require a dot after a noun or non-adjective. Yeah, I'm paying closely, hyper vigilant about this stuff here.
ごめん、ちょっと遅れると思う。
Okay. So, oku, deru. What the difference is if it were to use like naru. Oku ni naru. Thing. That came across my mind just now.
その言い方はひどいと思うよ。
Harsh. No, hitoi. Oh, hard. I see. Hitoi. I see.
俺はあの人が綺麗だと思う。
Yeah, so I say like tomo. However, it can kind of slightly sound a little more steady when it's before something.
俺はあの人が綺麗だと思う。これはフランス語だと思う。
Yeah. Okay, although this structure usually requires dot after noun and non-adjective, it's often omitted. Okay. In casual speech. Alright, I see.
私は日本が安全と思う。
安全と思う。Instead, 安全だと思う。Okay. Caution. If you want to express what somebody else is thinking, yeah. Okay, 思っている. Okay, 思っている will be used. This is due to と思う having a sense of permanence, and that is very bold, is overreaching to suggest that you could know what other people are thinking, which is how I speak English most of the time. Unless I follow up with a phrase like, okay, let me be direct with you. This is what I suspect and presume you are saying and how you are behaving, which I did a couple times this week in the past when I was trying to lay out the foundations for a narrative that I want to present about the person's thoughts and their the observational behavior that I've witnessed. However, it was prefaced heavily with suggesting that you must excuse my directness, which is not because I'm raised Japanese, it was more because I was raised Chinese. The idea is that you rarely ever speak in a way that you're gaslighting someone. And it's not that every time you suggest you think you know what someone else is thinking, that you're gaslighting them, but it can come, the fear of that is what I feel is one of the motivations for this. because you don't want to insist like you know what the other person is doing or thinking, and it can unintentionally be seen as you attempting to convince them that that's what they think. That mere suggestion of it can be sufficient to get someone to believe that. Like, man, well, I do the take this with a grain of salt. I'm being a little direct with you, but I feel when you do this, this is what happens. And I don't think that's what is going to happen if you think you're doing this. That's kind of the idea. And the word think comes naturally into it, which this would be a great illustration. I remember way back when I first started in Japanese, maybe like a month in, someone trying to explain to me that unlike Americans and unlike English speakers, you try Japanese, you have to remind yourself that Japanese is always considerate of the person they're speaking to by not indicating what they desire or describe the desires of others, like hoshi, right? Hoshi. And my first thought is like, yeah, I know. And then one of the individuals got a little upset, like they think that I was saying, oh, you think you know everything because you're an American. And I'm like, no. But I didn't have the opportunity to share that. It was more like, no, because I'm Asian American. The culture is you do not go and ever do that. And the paradox here is the person literally was doing that in English while suggesting that they understand the principles behind Japanese to be courteous to another person. They literally accused me of being an American English speaker in American prior to even offering the unsolicited advice. And there's a whole nother deal with unsolicited advice in the Japanese culture, which I'm paralleling, making a fairly strong analogy to Chinese culture. When you insist that your advice, just because you know better, you are entitled to get up all in another person's business and then project what you think is better for them. That is one of the internal things, in my opinion, internal logics behind the semantics and the syntax of the Japanese language. I'm not sure enough about the Chinese language. I would say anecdotally, that's how we speak a lot of times. You keep it at home. However, I can concede that there is an American side of me. So Americans are presumably relatively far more concerned with others, and that is kind of why I do this. So it's not that I couldn't appreciate that person trying to look out for me in some way. However, the thing is, when you look out for someone, you're also there to have a discussion with them, and that person clearly did not stay to have a discussion, though they were merely there to project or show off. Usually people who are there to show off and someone resists and say, oh yeah, you know, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know, I understand. Like, no, you don't. You're only 2 weeks into Japanese. There's no way you can understand the cultural courtesy that Japanese is. But I'm not just an American, like an American English speaker and whatnot. It's like, isn't that something that you should observe by now? Like, and that's kind of it's one of those early days where it's a shame we couldn't hash it out, I suppose, talk about what we think, and then suggest what we may be thinking to each other, and how the other person thinks. I think this is not only, to me, an important concept linguistically, right? Like, you can still learn this mechanic without comprehending or internalizing how important it is. Like this, in my opinion, this concept that they're talking about here is one of the major principles of a face culture. Like if you do not live in a face culture, in my opinion, it can be very obvious that one has to, over time, comprehend the nature of this. I think it is the one thing that I still feel when I talk to my American friends, or like my lifelong, like not my best friends, but a lot of my colleagues and whatnot who grow up in different culture. It's very different. This is one of the fundamental code switching that happens. The idea that someone can be so certain and so bold that they, in an authority position or a position of self-proclaimed expertise, like internet experts, that they can forcibly project and even predict what that person is going to feel in the future. That is, if you want to challenge me, feel free. Challenge me, data mine the internet, and tell me that it is less common to have someone suggest things than telling and projecting things as though it is likely to happen. I think telling and predicting is indicating a prediction is far more. In fact, the entire business model online involves that, right? Why do you buy a product? Because it is certain in your future, if you use this product, you'll succeed. Why are you buying a game? Because if you spend $70, you're expected to get $70 worth of value from the video game. It's not you think. It's not maybe they will provide. It's I better get $70. And then what happens when you don't? You write a review dictating what should have happened, or what you believe had to happen in order for you to be satisfied. Those are all related, in my opinion, to the indicative mood that is used in English. The nice thing about, in my opinion, the thing about the English language is there is a very clear line when someone is being subjunctive and someone's being indicative. So it gives a clear line, in my opinion. I'm not sure how Japanese yet. I'm not entirely sure how Japanese, if there's a clear separation in certain uses for this type of thing. I think the default is consistently this, where if you're in public or you're making a statement, generally you're using formal language or considerate language. I still think suggesting what another person thinks is still relatively direct. Like this is a little bit too direct still. The idea is you ask the person how they feel. That would be the most formal and public way to say something, which is, I think you probably heard this in Japanese, right? Like, I think this game is really great, desu ne? You're looking for confirmation. So the most common way is you say what you think and you ask, you're waiting for confirmation or the degree of confirmation. That's why isn't it and different degrees of isn't it, in my opinion, is the default in Japanese. Because in English, it's the same if you come from a culture, a face culture. Like, hey, oh yeah, right, I heard that the, okay, I heard that the game was pretty rough. What do you think about it? Like, I did hear it's bad, right? Like, isn't that the general consensus? What are your thoughts about this? That is Japanese with English, right? The internalization of Japanese, where when you're asking for opinions and you're expressing opinions, you have to consider the phrases that are necessary. And I think that internal logic is where, when people talk about their personalities, like among their friends, if you see a personality shift, this is my personal narrative, so take it with a grain of salt. Whenever a friend goes up to you and say, "Oh yeah, man, you are really different when you speak Japanese than when you speak English," to me, that's more personal narrative, grain of salt. It's more that person has discovered in etiquette involving their acquisition of a language and slowly assimilating another culture that was like that overlap and interacts with that language. For myself, I don't think my English behavioralisms is going to change very much despite learning Japanese, because my English sounds like that already for the most part. If I were to use my effective code swapping for my personal type of communication, for the most part, right? Every time I say for the most part, it's likely the case. That is presumably to be true. However, there are exceptions. All of these versions are a version of desu ne, desho, right? Omo. That's so for me, whenever someone says, "Oh yeah, you're so different," and then the person themselves don't realize that, they've acquired and started internalizing a new culture, a new like communication style through their exposure to another culture. And that's great, because I absolutely love when I see people get excited. They get excited. "Oh yeah, like when I'm in the United States, I sound very excited and expressive." Like, yeah, you can also make English very timid and passive if you want it, by adapting Japanese culture into English, and vice versa. You can sound incredibly bold in Japanese. I mean, Japanese people would be very resistant to that because they're very homogenized, right? But in English, no, you can most definitely sound passive and timid and incredibly fearful and polite, while also sounding aggressively direct, expressionist, and individualistic, because English have enough uses of different cultures to elicit that. I had to learn how to sound less passive in English. Inherently, when I was growing up, most of my English was incredibly passive. Like, whenever someone told me and I learned a phrase and what it meant, I tend to stray away from individualism. Like, I rarely use the word I. I rarely use the word myself. Like, I did this myself. That is very uncomfortable. It's still uncomfortable to this day. Like, when someone asks me, "Oh yeah, you must be fantastic, you're a self-made man," it's like, I'm never a self-made man. Like, I understand the whole concept of being self-made. Like, you don't take handouts from your parents, and you like, your parents didn't provide a roadmap for you or what have you, like how dependent you are on your parents. That's I would never say that. That's because I grew up in a Chinese household. Like, my parents did everything. I would not exist without my parents. And even because they didn't learn Japanese or they didn't go to college, I was dependent on them. It's inexcusable to ever suggest that. Now, what I said can be incredibly frictional. Like, there's a lot of friction with others who might come from a different culture, especially the United States, where it can make them, like, they can juxtapose with me, right? Like, for example, a person who goes around thinking they're self-made. I'm not saying you can't say that. That's the difference between living a life assimilating multiple cultures than one culture. I can agree with you how good it feels to say, oh, you went to college, you on the one side worked and studied at the same time, so you weren't dependent on your parents' finances. That's a point of pride. And oftentimes when people say they're self-made is with the minimal or below average dependency on their parents' legacy. There's pride in that. Celebrate it. I'm saying myself, I would never say that, because not only can I appreciate that there's a lot of pride to saying, oh, I did everything, my parents didn't know how to help me with it, but I still managed to do it. That's still factually true. However, I wouldn't ever say that I don't owe everything to my parents, because that is not the family values that I grew up with. And this would be one of them. I think one of the biggest dissonance here, especially when you're streaming, by the way, like when you're a voluntary public figure nowadays, which is very common. The most common use of the English language is to project, not to be subjunctive. So you don't suggest like, oh, are you feeling kind of tired today? Do you think that I'm right on the mark? Like, how are you feeling today? I feel you appear tired to me. Is that right? That would be Japanese. That would be English projecting Japanese values. However, you don't hear that most of the time. The most common thing is, wow, you sound tired. Oh, yeah, you're right. Right? The response would be, oh, yeah, you're right. I am tired. Right? It wouldn't be offensive or overreaching or anything. But if you go around like that, in my opinion, and say, oh man, you look really tired. It's like, what do you mean I look really tired? Like, who are you and why do you... That's a little weird. Like, how would you know if I'm really tired? Right? That's... I mean, it's not quite one-to-one, but that's how I feel sometimes. Whenever someone says like, oh man, you're gonna hate studying Japanese because it's gonna be a really hard language. If I had $1 for every time someone said that to me, saying that they understand one of the inherent cultural things about the Japanese language, it's kind of a bit disappointing that they didn't internalize it to the point where they realize that they do that in English. Like, what I mean is, compartmentalizing makes it so that the stuff you learn from a different culture doesn't interact with a different culture. So that's where you get, in my opinion, great, often noticeable transitional personality swaps. If you're successful, which is really impressive, by the way, for myself, I don't inherently do these things, but for people to be able to compartmentalize so well that their natural personalities swap based on not what they're communicating, but more when they choose to communicate as a mechanism, and then they are shocked, they surprise themselves, and other people have to tell them that they did a code swap. To me, that would suggest that this person didn't necessarily internalize the thing, they compartmentalized the thing. So yes, you can be incredibly passive, polite, and unnecessarily agreeable in English. In fact, oftentimes you'll know when you succeed because when someone asks you a question, it'll feel like you're dodging most of the time. Like, why do you have to self-censor? Like, why? I get this when I'm speaking in my natural code in English. When someone says, why are you being so agreeable? Like, why can't you just have an opinion? Like, tell me what to do, or at least explain to me what you're really thinking. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really thinking this. Like, I'm thinking about a lot of things. There are 10 possible possibilities. Which one do you want to hear about? May I ask which one could I have some direction from you? in order for me not to project and assume what you're thinking. That's kind of the nature. And then someone will say, why are you beating around the bush? It's like, that is the nature of what English sounds like when you're projecting a foreign culture. And what I'm doing right this moment is probably my most natural English speaking voice. There's a lot of probablys, there are lots of propensities, lots of digression, incredibly long-winded, and potentially appears as uncertain and a bit apologetic and disclaimery, you know? That's kind of the... And if you're wondering, where can you get this naturally? Go into a seminar discussing a phenomenon between like 14 different scientists that is in a interdisciplinary hearing or a seminar, like lecture about the topic. You'll probably hear a lot of this type of speech, which oftentimes there's a funny double standard, because if it was a context of a science thing, it would be seen as, oh yeah, they're just smart intellectual people being considerate of each other and then like colloquially intellectually exchange. But then when you move into politics, right, like, oh, they're basically trying to obfuscate and smokescreen their hidden agendas with each other. It's like, yeah, well, that is the nature of the skill, right? The skill is to sound like you're not being direct. So do you know that that's what they're gonna do? You could make an argument statistically that, yeah, that's kind of their purpose. They're forwarding their agenda without revealing what their agenda is. That involves the same mechanism of not trying to be direct and projecting, because the moment you project, you give away what your agenda is, right? However, the essence of the mechanic does overlap. When someone genuinely cares about you in a foreign culture, at least in my opinion, the foreign culture that I grew up in, my Chinese parents, is that you don't try to dictate what the other person is feeling. You ask what the other person is feeling. You ask what that person wants. You listen to what that person wants. You share what you think could be possibly relevant to what that person wants. And then you come to the internet, where the dominance is that whoever is going to unsolicitedly provide advice, they know better than you. Big talking point. This is a huge talking point here. And it's still uncomfortable to this day. When someone asks, which happened in the last 3 or 4 days straight, when someone asks for my advice or asks for what is best, I don't know what is best. That it would be the most honest opinion. And in a direct culture, someone could say, oh no, you're just being humble. Like, you know, it can come off as you're just being humble or you're downplaying yourself. It's like, no, I am genuinely fearful of answering a question when someone asks, what is the best thing since sliced bread? I'm like, whoa, like, are you gonna quote me on this? Like, I don't want to be responsible or accountable for telling someone what the best thing is, because I don't even know what the best thing is. I genuinely don't. Especially when it's a person that the first time we ever interact is that they assumed enough about me that I somehow have this like wild wisdom about it. And I think that's kind of the stereotype about someone who does something for a very long time. It is automatically assumed that when you do something a very long time, you become very sure of yourself. Honestly, not the culture that I lived in. Not the culture that I embraced along with different cultures. In fact, I become less and less sure of myself in that particular way the more experienced I have become. Because the questions, which is what Mika I feel, is discovering yesterday. When you learn more, you have more problems. When you learn more, your ignorance is gone, or like your ignorance is mitigated. So there are more and more factors that are in play. And depending on the culture that you grew up in my opinion, if you're this Japanese culture, you are less and less likely to overreach when you get more and more informed and experienced, because it becomes more and more complex, not less complex. Again, taking into consideration a different culture. Others would say, oh, the more and more you learn something, the more and more you... Okay, I have to take a quick criticism. The more and more you practice something, the more and more certain you are about it. The more and more you learn, the less and less certain you're going to be. So that is a very different dichotomy that I have to emphasize here. Because if you learn more, then you have more to take into account. But if you're in a skill development where you're practicing more, then yes, you will become more and more certain. And oftentimes I would use my admiration for speedrunners, for example. Right? The more and more you practice, the more and more certain you feel because you're practicing. Right? You're practicing. It's minimal learning. That's not a good thing, not a bad thing. To get more and more certain and more consistent, you practice. But the thing I was talking about when it comes to these things, or not that one, but the phrase down there, is you are learning more about a person. So yes, in a way, you should become a little bit more certain about a specific person. But that is a lot of combination of practice and learning. But when you learn about the world or a concept, it becomes more complicated. So you become more and more reserved. At least in my opinion. Because there's more and more ways you can be wrong. You don't just when you learn something, you don't only learn more ways you can be right. You arguably learn even more ways you could be wrong, and that makes it even less and less likely certain. So if you're in a learning career, then yeah, it's not a coincidence that the vast majority of learners or scholars sit in a room and they could talk endlessly about the permutations and probabilistic nature of all the things they learned. Meanwhile, if you're in a room and everyone always agrees on exactly what is the best way, you're in a room filled with practitioners, not in a room of learners. Practitioners tend to be very certain because they have strategically stayed within the relevant closed system, and that makes things super practicable, super optimizable. When you are operating within a closed system, you can get to 99% perfection. It is possible when the system is closed. So I'm not talking about this. Most of my comments was not talking about this. I think when it comes to Japanese politeness and the nature of not being able to assume other people is because the system is not closed. The amount of information is not closed off. Even within Japanese culture. Now imagine, in my opinion, right, anecdotally, imagine growing up where you aren't just Japanese, or you're you're just not Chinese. You're both American and Chinese. Now the system is not only a system of one cultural norms. You're talking about the interaction of a system of two cultural norms. And one of the countries happens to have over, an unfathomable number of cultural norms that isn't simply identified as Japanese. In fact, in China or Japan, that's still not even the case, right? Because you still have like people from different provinces and whatnot. And in the United States, it's even more fragmented, in my opinion. I would argue that I believe it is fairly safe to say that the dissonance that is portrayed stereotypically in the United States is also a reflection of the natural fact that in the United States, opinions and cultural norms are far more fragmented than another country that is perceived as having a united front, like Japan and China. Whether that's governmentally enforced or some sort of culturally tied, where there is more dissonance, there is likely more fragmentation in cultural norms than where there is homogeneous normities. And I kind of like this normity. One of the most normal things for me is you do not speak in a confidence that projects that you understand the other person. What is the typical interaction I have? Opposite of this. And it's kind of refreshing. Like, I genuinely find it incredibly refreshing when after someone learned Japanese for like 2 or 3 years, they moved to Japan, and the first thing they realized was the thing that I grew up with. Because that means that I love to hear what they think. So far, I know 3 or 4 people who are going to move to Japan and seek their dreams and integrate to Japanese culture, etc., or however they're going to do it. I'm excited to see what happens, and hopefully that I stay in contact with them to see how the way they currently speak, in my opinion, is not reflexive of what, again, I've never visited Japan, so I can't be that bold, but I would love to see how it juxtaposes to my opinions and thoughts about my Chinese upbringing from my parents, extended from my parents, what I think all the things I see in Japanese culture as a distance that is very analogous to the Chinese culture, and what these people see when they move. Because I would love to connect with them the way I connect to multicultural people. Because a lot of times multicultural people, especially in the United States, came from a country or came from their parents immigrated from a country that has distinctively different cultural norms than the United States' multi-generational Americans. And what happens is the first thing they learn is this. They learn when they talk in public that it's not that simple. It's rarely that simple. So you have these comments all the time like, well, not everyone's American. Like, yeah, but not everyone's Italian either. Not everyone's Japanese. It's pretty ironic because a lot of times when someone attacks an American for saying like, oh yeah, well, not everyone lives in the United States, like that comment is one of the backtalk that happens. Like, well, you're talking like everyone should understand your Italian ways. That's kind of, or like your French ways or something. The pot calling the kettle black. And the ones that you can pick out that clearly are multicultural, in my opinion, are the ones who speak, oh, that's an interesting way to think about it. I'm not saying everyone does this, but oftentimes it'll be something like this, where, I didn't realize in the United States, that's what they did. I heard that in Italy they do this, and in the country, the immediate environment that I live in, this is what we do. It's kind of humorous that the 3 countries kind of agree or disagree in this nature because all three of them exist when this event happened. That would be something that I would say immediately indicates that I'm talking to someone who is not only multicultural, but they have embraced the idea that they like to keep it that way. Not the same as someone who decided life would be more simpler by rejecting one and then taking on another one. That is perfectly fine, because I do feel there are quite a lot of people out there who a simpler lifestyle makes them happier, and that's cool. So that person who was like projecting their social norms, that is their prerogative. They have the right to have those opinions, and they also have to understand that people disagree with them, more likely disagree with them, because they don't speak agreeably. You naturally don't speak agreeably if you're not embracing multiculturalism. So I'm also saying that if you are raised multicultural, like you know, you were born in a different country, that doesn't mean you end up being multicultural. There are very, very well documented cases where when you go to another country and then the country is monocultural, the foreigner can either choose to consistently reject assimilating that culture, or they completely become assimilated into that culture, or a mix of two. So those are three states that do exist. A state in which they code swap consistently and have no problems with that, or they're happily going to assimilate the culture, or they can reject and compartmentalize, which is interesting. I would love to see which one it is. The multiculturalism would be like blending. There would be some sort of blending that comes with the consistent code swapping. Compartmentalization would be something where they can clearly know when they're acting American and they can clearly know when they're acting Japanese, which is what you hear in interviews where like, oh dang, your personality just swapped between, they're compartmentalizing, in my opinion. And that's a great skill. Like, it's an excellent skill to have. That means you can have two distinct skills, two distinct personalities. Fair enough. For myself, it's kind of like a Mary. It's a bit of a mush. James thinks he is smart. Fair enough. Fair enough, James. That is most definitely... I see what you did there, which is funny. And also referring to yourself in third person is... I don't know how often Japanese people refer to themselves in third person. I wonder how that happens. In English, I think the propensity, the likelihood is the propensity is referring to yourself in third person is kind of like a weird thing. And then I think linguistically, someone said there are places where they traditionally refer to themselves in the third person. I could be making this up. Like, there's another person who was like really interested in like rare linguistic patterns, and they suggested that there are places where they would refer to them. You can do it in Japanese, but it sounds very childish. Oh, okay. Yeah, in English, does it sound childish? I think it sounds weird, but I feel it almost sounds old-fashioned. Like, I, King Lear the Fourth or something, decrees that, etc. You know what I mean? Like, referring to your title, right? So I can see that when referring to yourself in the third person. Like, there's a surrogate for this, referring to yourself in third person. You can refer to your profession as a way to refer to yourself in the third person. It's a surrogate though. It's more like it operates more like a pronoun. So like, I, as a Chinese American, think this. That is one of the most common, like a far more prevalent comment in English online. oh, I, as an engineer of 40 years, believe the following. It's used as a qualification, and I think it's kind of an archaic style that has become more retroactively, maybe like retroactively trendy now. Like, I, as a polyglot of 5 languages, etc. Elmo refers to himself in third person. Yeah, that's the most classical. That's the most classical Sesame Street reference, or a childhood reference in the United States, especially from the United States, where Elmo refers to himself in third person. Yeah. Whether that's clever or not, I don't know. There's an interesting Wikipedia article on it under Iliism. I'm not familiar with that term. He is. Huh. Coined in 1809. Yeah. Here's an interesting thing, James. There is. We'll use this word now. So Iliism, I'm guessing on the pronunciation. We'll just use Iliism. Or Iolism? Oh, it could be Iolism now that I think about it. Iolism, because like Iolism, maybe it's Iolism. That sounds more fitting. There's an I in thing of it, but we'll just refer to it. Let's just refer to it as Iolism. There is a common pattern, a more growing pattern of Iolism, and that's when someone like a content creator. It happens in content creation. If the content creator predominantly uses an alias, there is a point when they have enough public exposure that they will engage in Iolism, which is really interesting, because there is another form of Iolism, but not quite Iolism. Is when an actor starts to identify or deliberately do it. They deliberately identify as a character they play, and then they refer to it, and then they get choked up sometimes, like, oh, you know, Fisk. Well, you know, Fisk. That I've been watching interviews with like Devil Reborn, like Born Again, like Daredevil Born Again, and occasionally D'Onofrio and Cox would talk about their characters, and then they would be like, Fisk, well, D'Onofrio playing Fisk, well, me. That's the thing that happens. And in content creation, that happens a bit too, where at some point they, like, for example, what's his name, Nigel. Yeah, Nigel, when he refers to Uncle Roger, that happens where occasionally you can see a character break or not a character break, or some semblance of interview where they would say like, well, you know, Uncle Roger, Nigel, me do that, and then that's where the whole third person thing kind of is interesting, because you are technically referring to someone else, but inherently you're also referring to yourself at the same time. Am I studying for PhD? I finished my PhD. H2? EH2? Oh man, since YouTube swapped to like the at tag being the default, or like you can't change it, I don't really know how to refer to people. Just go hey. Yeah, I finished my PhD studies 8 years ago. It's been 8 years. It's almost been a decade now. And okay, so anyways, this is the permanence. You have to make sure not to infer people's feelings. That's my digression for the day. And we gotta keep going. Oh, hey, Nado. We finally got the Nado thing. We got another thing that means such as too. Was it a part of the grammar section or the vocab section? Anyways, this is the first default because it was an N5 group. There's an N4 vocabulary for such as well. And then we also learned another thing for such as, I'm pretty sure in the, maybe they'll refer to it. Nado is an adverbial particle that is used to express that something is being presented as an example. That other things in the same category also exist in this way. It is regularly translated as such as, things like, or and so on. Nado may be used after nouns, I see that, to describe that A is being presented, right, as an example from within a group. Alternatively, nado can be followed by a no. B to show that A is only one example from within a broader category really. Okay. Alright.
この公園では石などを投げないでください。
Okay, yep. Alright, I got that.
彼はいつもルームメイトなどの悪口を言っています。
Interesting. I see. I see. That might take a little getting used to. Nado is regularly seen in its kanji form, right? Nado. This kanji itself has a similar meaning to etc. in English, right? Default. Fun fact: the kanji for nado is also used in the pluralizing suffix. Yeah, due to this, we can see that this kanji is regularly utilized to highlight something that exists as part of a larger group. Yeah. I think I've seen one example of this before. In the vocabulary section. Kabanya kutsu? Kutsu nado. Okay. Yeah, kabanya kutsu nado. So, such things as bags and shoes. Or kawa ni sete wa naranai. Yeah. When you have to say this, you know it's happened, in my opinion. Anyways, あいつなど本当にうるさいね。Sorry. I honestly chuckle quite often whenever I have to read something like aggressively offensive in Japanese. Or like, it's not aggressively, it's relatively aggressively Japanese, like offensive. Like what I mean is what I digressed about an hour ago. For the last hour, this sounds very upfront. Like this to me sounds very upfront. Like I feel uncomfortable saying these things, and then it feels even weirder when I'm reading Japanese that says these things. It is good to learn these things because it means that I have to listen to other people make these comments, maybe. However, much like English, I rarely say things like I don't care. Once in a blue moon, I do say it, and they're meant for very special times. And then stuff like stupid, like I still only use stupid as an example. Like it goes with to, it ends after to. Stupid to. That's when happens. Or like I don't know, things like skill issue, I suppose. They're usually in quotes. And when I have to read these because I technically said it, right? When I'm reading this sentence, I technically said something along the lines of these people are very noisy, don't you think? So I'm quoting by speaking them. However, would I find an opportunity to literally produce this? Very, very seldomly. Incredibly seldomly. Most of the time, if you'll find me saying things like very noisy, obnoxious, asinine, trivial. The cruelest word I can probably say would be like disagreeable, produced from myself. But the other words would be quoting someone or using someone else's words in order to match their level. So if someone's calling me stupid, you might hear me use the word stupid because I either read it or I'm trying to get on their level, right? Maybe to reach an empathetic point or something. Like, oh man, this game is stupid. It's like, oh, may I ask why you think this game is stupid? Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't think it's stupid, but I really want to get to know why you think the game is stupid. That's probably when I would use it. Other than that, when I use words like these, it would be prefaced with, I'm going to be direct with you here. I want you to be I want to be very clear here. I don't care. That's kind of like that's how important it is to me. When you're using negative words and aggressive words, we have to set the stage. Like, I want to be genuinely forward with you here. But that would be very foolish. Something like that. My tone and my speech pattern and my speed would also change. In the first sentence, Nado presents A, right, as part of a larger group of similar things, right? That is, I feel this is coming off naturally for me. The second one is the one here is a little bit like I need some time to process this. Okay, this is exactly the same thing that happens in the second sentence with Ra. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, Nado is also something written, sometimes written as Nanka. Oh, that makes sense. Nanka. It has an interchangeable meaning in many situations. However, Nanka will never use the kanji form of Nado. Okay. Oh, that makes sense now. Nanka. Yeah. We'll never use the kanji form of Nado. In fact, it's interesting. It could also be like they could have used nani and then looked at it as ka, as in the unknown marker ka, which means like anything, right? Like that's interesting. I imagine that's not a coincidence. Because if you use the character for nani and then add ka to it, it would almost feel the same as nado as well. Okay. Next one. Mitai. Mitai. Huh. Is there a kanji form of this? I'm guessing it's gonna be... Okay. Conversational, less formal than Yolda. But I don't have a functional basis for Yolda yet. Yolda. Yeah, I don't. That we only have 3 vocabulary. It's probably coming up in this couple of grammar points. Okay. Verb plus mitaida. Okay. And it looks like we treat all the others the same. Okay. I'm guessing it's just this and In Japanese, there are many ways to express that something happens in a way that is like something else. Ah, okay. So that's where the mitai, I see. Or resembles something else. One of these ways is through the use of a na adjective, mitai, and can be used after any word that a na, wait, can be used after any word that a na adjective would usually follow. Express that something is like a or similar to a. Okay. Any word that a na adjective can follow. That's a interesting way of looking at it.
明日は雪が降るみたいだ。
I'm not sure if I'm good enough to know what it is that a word that a non-adjective would usually follow. I'm not sure about that. That's something that I'll keep in mind.
そこのプールは浅いみたいだ。
Oh, okay, that one, yeah, I got you.
彼は地下鉄が嫌いみたいだ。
That one too. I'm not sure about this one because it's a verb. I would naturally think that that's something.
その携帯はパソコンみたいだ。
This one as well. Not haven't seen enough. In the above example, we can see that mitai should always be followed by da or des when it is at the end of a statement. However, this is frequently omitted. Oh, interesting. Very e adjective like.
先輩は今日は来ないみたい。
And it actually also kind of flows with the idea that e's end sometimes, like for example, Thai form could end a phrase, like a statement as well. That's interesting. Mitai is also often used to describe another noun, but needs to be followed by na. I mean, it's essentially like functioning like a na adjective in these cases. And this type of sentence is used expressing that something is B but resembles A. Okay.
"彼はスポーツ選手みたいな体をしている."
Okay. Mitai is used most often in conversational situations and is based on direct relatable information. So it has to be direct relatable. It is far less formal than its counterpart, Yoda. Okay, alright. I got you. Wait. Do I have Yoda? Am I blocking that out of memory? I don't think so. Despite mitai meaning to resemble and being based on usually visual stimulus, it should not be confused with mitai, okay, to want to see. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I still think I thought maybe me, not the Thai form of me, but like the essence of seeing is in the me, not that it is to want to see. This is a common mistake that learners make, as mitai itself does not have a kanji form. Oh, that's disappointing. It would be a great mnemonic to think about it that way, where you're seeing a resemblance of something, not that you want to see. Although you can kind of make an argument that it is suggesting that whatever you're saying is a desire to relate to things, but that would be bold. Yeah. That is one of the possibilities that I was thinking of. I was actually thinking of a Thai, like thinking of maybe like form or something, a homonym that reminds me of likeness or status, like kaku, kaku, se, katsu, that type of thing. So I was trying to look for another tai as a mnemonic reminder, because if you said mitai, mitai as in to want to see, that would fall apart immediately. And that's what I was thinking of up here. I'm like, huh, I wonder if there is a kanji representation of me and tai, not me conjugated, obviously. Let's see. Fun fact: mitai da is originally as an abbreviation of the more formal phrase. There it is. Oh, mita yona. I see. And then that's where as a result of this, we can see that yoda kept its formal meaning. Yeah, yoda. And then there's a yes. And then while mitai became the casual equivalent. Yes. So it does have the mi kanji in it. I see. As expected. Despite this caution up here. Again, this whole like this is a common mistake that learners use. Fear or a negative statement. Negative statement to create caution, right? Caution is very powerful. Okay, let's see. Okay, so are we concerned about this? There's kind of a second use that I would need some time to adjust. And then there's this statement here. Any word that a nod to would usually follow. We'll see. We'll see about that.
このズボンはいいと思います。
Oh no.
イタリアやアメリカなどに行きたい。
Okay, that will kind of iron itself out at some point. Yeah, that will probably naturally iron out itself at some point, because there will be examples that's gonna come out. Akuma. Okay. Oh, I think all I can think about is Yoda. Okay.
この犬はクマみたいです。
Okay. Alright. Okay, let's go to our vocabulary. We'll be a little quicker in our vocabulary. Dio. This is use, right? Profit. What is another way to say profit? Benefit? Use. Okay. Dio. Tateru. This is off of a special read, actually, of it. Tateru, this is probably legacy before like Wanikari and stuff. Tateru because tatemono. That's where the tate and mono comes from. I imagine. The tate and then stuff, mono, so buildings. Tatemono. Let's see. To be helpful. 役に立つ役に立つ that needs some help. Huh. I can see how it leads to be helpful. But I'm drawing kind of a on. Service. Yaku? Okay. Right. We'll come back to this. Tuts is very strong. That's it. And Yaku is a little on the weaker side. Okay. Bagu. Oh my goodness. Bagu. Okay. Yoi. Preparation. Yoi. No, yeah. Yoi. Do we have Junbi? This one could get lost. Could get lost. Sonnani. Oh no. Sonnani. Sonnani. That's okay. Do we have the other ones? This is where a grammar point, at some point, a grammar point with like sonna, like kosoado plus na ni, like this particular version, this setup, like you know, donna, sonna, onna with ni as a grammar point in usage could help with distinguishing them, but probably a little bit later in this group, or maybe even later in N3, possibly. Don't really know where it is at the moment. I still got a bunch of vocabulary in the N4 group that are sentence, like they're adverbials, and they look like adverbial particles and or adjectival things. Okay. So much. So just roll with the punches here. Right, judo. For the longest time, I thought that was judo. Judo sounds okay, but judo. That's it. Okay. Distinction, difference. Okay. Kekkonshiki. Did we have kekkon? Yeah, we did. Yep. That would be an invitation, alright. Sure. Shotai. Shotai. Hold up. I want to be sure about my studies with... Oh. We don't have... Yep. I figured. I'm like... I don't remember it linking up with Tai. So this vocabulary word is new. Makes sense in Chinese. Oh no, wait. They included it as a pseudo verb as opposed to a standalone. Intriguing. Which makes it this too. So they had shotai suru as opposed to just shotai. Should be wait, right? Yeah. Okay. This is awadi. Awadi. Oh no. No, mawadi. Mawadi, that's right. The other round thing. I think this is gonna create a 25%. I think one of the particular word groups about neighborhood, vicinity, surrounding, and background is expanding now with Mawari. And it might dip, this might also dip into another group, or the Mawa group, like revolving, spinning, and stuff like that. What we got here? Shikata. This is special. Shikata. She was I want to say it was do, right? Do, yes. Or doing. Okay. I almost said nin, but nin is duty, and it differs by 1 stroke. Technically, it differs by 2 strokes, but I think... Oh no, it actually only differs by 1 stroke, because I'm pretty sure, due to the typage of this, it's actually... Pretty sure it's this. Not that. But you can kinda... No, that's my imagination. I'm pretty sure these are the same length. But it's... I'm pretty sure this bottom one is supposed to be also... Actually, no, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be slightly shorter. From a writing perspective, the nin differs in 1 stroke because the center is still the longest. So this is nin. It is not the same as this. This is a different character. Yeah, this is a different character. And there isn't an equivalent with 1 stroke difference from right to left on top of this one. So this is not realized when using typographical stuff. But I'm pretty confident these are the same lengths. Yeah, they're the same length. It should be slightly shorter on the bottom. That's how you would know it's she. Although, since it's next to kata, it's gotta be shikata. At least, I'm not sure what the other one would mean. I don't know if there's another character. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if there's another combination. There might not be, so that's why it's not important. Oh yeah, it doesn't seem like there is at the moment. So it wouldn't create any confusions. Okay. Way, like doing way, but still way. Aisu is fine. Aisu is probably the most Chinese, like Chinese, like Japanese Chinesey stuff here. Aisu. I got the su from the Japanese thing, but this is I. It's I in both languages. So it's one of the things where like, oh hey, Aisu, no problems. It's the Japanese to love. Aisu. What I mean by that is kind of like when you think of how do you ingresu, right? Ingresu. Aisu. That's Chinese aisu. Like it's not love su, right? Not love su or lovuru or lovu. Aisu. I always thought it was kind of poetic. Love is a very important thing. So, hey, what is this? Ireru. Oh no. Ireru. What are you? Speak to me. I guess we use that as I. I don't not actually I'm not familiar with this one. I think this is brand new for me. Yep. That is brand new. Wait, unless that's hmm. Aren't you that thing on the bottom? Huh. Well, this one can be tough. Uh. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I'm like, oh, wait. Oh, no. That's not a dragon. Yeah. I'm not familiar with this at all. That is completely novel. I had two suspicions. I thought it might have something to do with water. Or the recent Taki. But that's not dragon. Dragon is the top is different. And it's also not a kanji that I've studied. So we're gonna have to come up with something. I don't know what the bottom thing is alone. What would that be considered? Let's try. Okay. Let's try to look at ore. Oh, they consider it as a rice paddy. thing. That's a bit of a stretch, if I do say so myself. Yep. So we'll have to come up with something here. Good afternoon, mate. What is tuts? It's on the tip of your tongue. You said it a little earlier. You know it's not summer. That's nuts. And it's not iron. Yeah, that's tetsu. So what would be a very common tuts? Is it just tuts or is it like tatsukeru? Tatsukeru would be something fairly common. Tatsukeru is to help. Like tatsukete. But I don't, something doesn't come up to me right away on tuts. just tots alone. That's a good question. Maybe stand up? I just had tots for stand up. Or like just a stand up. Like tatsu. Or I stand. Tots. You might have misheard it. There is tots though. To rise up, to get up, stand up. Tots has a lot of meanings, so there is a chance it's that. Tots has like 18 meanings, so that's combined with something. So you might have heard like maybe a noun plus tots, or a verb plus tots, maybe even like a gerund phrase plus tots. So that could be it. It's to stand something up. It's like any form of like. There's also like to establish anything that kind of deals with erecting something or taking action, possibly. That's the most recent. It's by coincidence. The most recent thing, one of my vocabulary words has tots in it. So that's all that's coming to mind right now. I think mostly everything else is kind of irregular. Irregular use. You think it was to stand when we were learning N5 level? Oh yeah, N5. Probably tots. Yeah, tots. And then N4, I think N4 is Taskeru. Taskeru is in N4, where it can sound like tots. Those are the only two that comes to mind. Like the very common use. Oh, you remember Tetsu. Yeah, Tetsu, iron, and Natsu. Nice. Those are nice ones. Glad you're like remembering things. Crocodile. Are you sure you don't want to start Japanese? I'm kidding. Obviously, you have a lot going on. Are you sure you don't want to start learning Japanese again, Crocodile? Maybe this time it'll be different. Do your little one like your your older one, your older little one? Have you ever seen like educational like anime related things? We're not talking about like that type of anime, but there are like really fun little family oriented anime shows that deal with educational material that are quite lovely, very wholesome. In fact, wholesome anime, like family anime oriented education stuff, is actually getting a lot older. Like what I mean is the popularization of like cozy, what called the cozy anime, cozy slice of life things that deal with growing up, talking to your parents, like doing things, wanting to be outdoors. That's actually a very highly stable and trendy area of anime. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because it also leans into potentially exploring Japanese again, while also crunching your time in with your kids. Maybe they'll like it, maybe they don't. That would be kind of interesting to know. I think cozy anime is a really wonderful staple for teaching family values, or like exposing family values, as opposed to like the hyper oriented don't do this, don't do that, or do this, do that kind of thing. James is a proprietor of cozy animes. The last couple that I watched were incredibly cozy. There are one or two that are, I would say, slightly on the more mature side. However, or like limited exposure side. But things like Yuru Kampu is really wonderful. They're so like drenched in wholesomeness that can be very welcoming. They're well thought out, in my opinion. As opposed to playing on the other type of childishness, like that is also part of childhood, like being rambunctious and mischievous and adventurous. There's also the responsibility, the discovery, and like work ethic and stuff. That's a very trendy part, a very staple of anime at the moment. They are often geared towards like having representation in the middle school, around middle school and early high school kind of age group as well. And usually those shows feature very strong parental figures, guardians and parental figures of all shapes and sizes, like those who also trying to find wholesome messages about you know, being grateful for what one has while also balancing what one desires, because when you're a child you do desire quite a lot, while also trying to be learning all the ropes of growing up, right? Anyways, Ireru, we're gonna need some help, so I'll have to write something about that when we come back around. Kolkan substitution? Oh, exchange. Oh, wait. Yes. Checks exchange. Yeah, this one's okay. Papa. Alright. Papa. Yeah, Papa. You know what a great use of pitch accent? When you use the same syllable. Oh, I guess onomatopoeias would be great for pitch accent, huh? Because I didn't say papa, right? Papa. I didn't say papa. And in isolation, papa and papa are the same thing when it comes to relative levels. But then you have papa, 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 right? Papa, papa. For like pitch up and pitch down, right? You got right? But it has to go across the initial as well. Anyways, next one. Sorry for like plosives. There's a chance I just was popping in the mic because of the P word or the P. I try not to like do too many plosives back to back into the mic. It can create a popping noise. That's what at least that's what I consider as a plosive. Okay, let's see. Kaku. Kaku what? Kakunin. Recognize. Verification. Status recognition, confirmation, verification, validation. Kakunin. Naru. For crying or sound or roaring or ringing, resound. Okay. Taiyo. Wait, did that say solar? Oh, okay. Inconvenient. Whoa. I was expecting like Fuben, but do we have Fuben yet? I don't think we have Fuben. Maybe we do. What is this? Tsugo ga warui. Tsugo ga warui. Tsugo is weird. I might have to write a note about this. I think it's gonna go with suit. So like it's not suitable, which is inconvenience. Tsugo, where are you, Tsugo? I don't think I have an example of this. Oh no, I don't. And the only way I thought it might have been go is because go is the actually kind of uncommon onyomi. So I just went with go, so the other one followed. Okay, here's another thing that I'm doing. So you guys watch some anime? Your eldest has recently gotten to watching Pokemon, so maybe we'll see. Yeah, so Pokemon, that's the like the shonen type of thing that is incredibly trendy, you know, like the fighting combat stuff. And that is really like super popular, right? You have to look for things. All right, no worries. That's super popular, but man, having children grow up with things like Yuru Kampu, man, you guys could go like camping with each other. It sounds amazing. Talk about suggestive things. Feels like more like author, you know, those other 4Kids television or sort of 4Kids television, like the show Author and Franklin the Turtle and whatnot. Anyways, let's see. So that's tall. Yeah, that's tall. Man. Yeah, tsu. Yeah, there is a tsu. Tsugo, one's convenience. Yeah, so tsugo, wow. Yeah, this is weird, tsugo. It's one's convenience. That's where I got that from. It's the pivot from its majority use of dealing with the city. But the mnemonic was like, tsugo wherever you please, at one's convenience. And then everything else deals with city. It's the only one that doesn't deal with city. This one could be a problem. Alright, let's go back through this. Okay. Let's see. The action of using something for a particular purpose. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A verb meaning to create or assemble a structure or building. Yeah, tateru. Co-location. I need to get used to saying co-location. I keep saying like collocation. Oh my goodness. Co-location that describes something that is beneficial or helpful. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yaku sir kutatsu yakuni tatsu. That's gonna be a rough one. I'm almost tempted to prematurely bookmark. We'll have to consider if I need to prematurely bookmark before sampling. I don't think I'm that reliable right now. MAKU, a non-Japanese word for flexible container used for carrying items, often with a strap that goes over one or both shoulders. That type of MAKU. The act of getting ready or making preparations for a particular task or event. Yeah, and it's a suru verb as well. So, junbi is gonna reduce this to a 50-50 until I can ascertain some context. I'm curious what they're gonna say or yell at me when I see it. Like they do like yoi suru, right? Instead of junbi suru. Okay, a phrase used to describe a significant quantity or degree. Yeah. May also express surprise over a mentioned extent. Don't quite know how those two sonna and then ni put together creates a phrase to describe a significant quantity or degree. I feel there's also something that will get yelled at, like if I put like onnani or something, there might be something that will yell at me that is not part of this description. A martial art and combat sport that emphasizes throws and grappling. Indeed. Doesn't quite match up with the gentle way, but you can kind of see it. A gentle way. Judo. Refer to something that is distinct or different from another, right? That's it. It's good. Kekkonsuki is good. A ceremony and celebration making the internal love and union of two people. Right. This is actually new, but I think I will be okay with this, right? Shotai. An offer or request to attend an event or gathering. Yeah, shotai. The area and thing that are around a particular point, that's gonna be rough. That summary is also rough. Mawari, yeah, that is rough. And then shikata is gonna be okay. I mean, or method of doing something. Aisu is lock stock. A verb that expresses the action of feeling deep affection and fondness for someone or something. The act of making a beverage, this is new, often referring to brewing tea or coffee. We actually have to make something now, and we're starting with a kunyomi. So if I had to take a venture of a guess, no, I don't even have that combination either. It lines up with, wait a minute. Oh, no, it doesn't. Just kidding. In? Didn't look quite like an in. Excuse me. Does any word use an in? Oh, it doesn't use it. Okay. Alrighty then. I guess we're stuck with, okay. So yeah, tsunami, big. Do I really want to use rice patty? Let's use patty, sure. And then deru, and then we have e. We'll say to brew. I think brew is fine regardless of either one. Oh, it is part of ireru. Oh. So it is that ireru. I see. Okay. How do we go about this? During the big tsunami, the rice paddy was destroyed. Eru to brew that's awful. All right, yeah, this is fine. That's so detached. Yeah, I mean, we could use it as I suppose. Fair enough. Maybe I should just convert eagle into I on occasion. Kind of ended up coincidentally working pretty well. The act of giving something and receiving something else in return. Right. Welcome. A non-Japanese word that is casual and affectionate way to refer to one's father. Papa. Much like mama and, you know, chichioya and all the others will come down to some gamblies. The act of verifying that something is accurate or correct. Right. So kaku, that's authenticity. Kaku, and then confirming or recognizing. Kakunin. Then naru. Action of producing a sound or noise. Yep. Okay. And taiyo. Okay, the star at the center of the solar system that provides light and heat to Earth. And then we have this. We'll see if I need to reinforce tsugoi. It is a great way to use tsugoi though. It's one of the early super rares. These are quite super rares. Super rares being like the overwhelming dominance of a kanji in a different context than this very specific one. And then this one is fine, but it has an underwhelming read frequency for goal. All right, and then now it's in a phrase, so okay, all right, let's get into it here. It's gone. 利用
太陽の強烈な光を利用する。
する。
学校を建てる。
How does one be helpful? Which term do they use? Which kanji do they use for helpful? Something, it's like something required to stand up. Oh, goodness gracious. Just fill it in. Why is it yaku? Service. It's a service.
彼はとても役に立つ社員だ。
パソコンが入る大きなバッグを買う。
Oh, it's gone. Dang it. Immediately. Jumbi stand. Oh, okay, I got it.
明日の弁当の用意をする。
Oh, I could have tested Jumbi just to see what they yell at me. Hmm. 彼女はなんで is that not a degree? Which one was the degree? Oh, interesting. Really?
彼女はなんでそんなに笑顔なの？
Wait. Hold up. Oh, okay. It just doesn't work. Okay. All right.
体育の授業で柔道を習う。
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, okay. No bits. No. MAKU.
昼夜の別なく働いてお金を貯める。
At the moment.
明日は元クラスメートの結婚式です。
友達をパーティーに招待する。
Wait, hold up. Let's try something. Okay. Okay. Or okay. No, that's I don't think it actually works in this. I'm not sure if it works if they like shake or something. I was trying other things just to see if it triggers anything.
周りに気を使う。
Kind of one of my favorite activities. It's easily one of my favorite activities when we're doing this. I'm doing this because I think it's fun to test the limits of overlapping in my connections. I actually think most or the impression I get is lots of people find that one of the most frustrating parts of vocabulary, like especially in Bunpro. It's come up a couple of times where it would say like, well, you know, you don't have enough to do this, and like I'm sick and tired of typing this, and it's this, and I can understand that. Again, the whole like going in for confirmation versus going in for observation. So for myself, I kind of just play into that because I think it's really fun. It's kind of like playing a deck builder, right? When someone says, oh yeah, this is the most optimized variant of this deck archetype. It's like, okay, now let's see how when you need to make choices and then the context changes, how can you still achieve a relatively unoptimized alternative in a manner of speak, right? And that's kind of what I'm doing here, where I know what the right answer is, or the answer they're looking for, right answer. I'm genuinely curious how many safeguards or alternatives that they account for. And that's kind of why video games are really fun, because in my opinion, personally for me, is that I often wonder if developers, right, when you're playing video games, like, oh, come on, the developers gotta know I'm gonna try this, right? And then you test that. And if they don't, yeah, that's a little bit of a disappointment. But it's also why games are interactive. If you wanted a confirmation, read a book. And even then, right, that sounded a little direct. Even then, when you read a book, you can use your imagination. However, there are people out there who read books for the sake of being served exactly what they believe, not to be served something that challenges their imagination. So that's very different, right? I read a book, in my opinion, to observe someone's work. I don't read a book to confirm what is satisfying and friendly to me. So if I'm reading a book, I want to learn something as well as be entertained. I'm not reading for the sole sake of being entertained to my liking. And then that could be a vibe, right? You could learn something from vibing, which is you read a book and you unexpectedly like the book even though you weren't expecting to like it. That's fair enough, right? Those are like that's fantastic. Good on the developer or like the writer and stuff. However, for myself, I read a book because I'm genuinely just curious about. I'm largely curious. This is what I mean by I don't read book because it's fun. I read a book to find out if it's fun, among other things. My primary purpose of doing things is to find out what happens, not to be predicted what it is. So this is the world, at least, that I talk to most of the time when someone said, and then I would ask them, like, what is your motivation? How do I get a better essence or grasp of the people I talk to, how consistently they respond? Typically, they do something because they want to. They do something because they believe it will pay them back. So, like, when you go and watch a show, you have to know with high regards that you'll like it before you watch the show. I don't think that's necessarily the same maybe 15 years ago when information wasn't so available. And that does come with some really wonderful pragmatism, right? You're not going to buy a book if it's going to be bad, right? Or you're not going to buy a book if 1 out of 10 people liked it. And that's perfectly fine. I'm trying to empathize here. My personal opinion, projecting, like now I'm projecting. I'm going to project my next one. When I see that 1 out of 10 people don't like this piece of work, it genuinely makes me curious. What is it that this writer or developer or something has done, provided I have enough time, right? Provided I have enough time. What is it that this developer and writer has done that's so egregiously, unanimously dislikable? That is an interesting case study. So I would more likely do something than that than have someone tell me, you're gonna like my game because it's everything you wanted. And I'm like, well, that's kind of boring. I mean, what I mean is, it's boring, but it's definitely going to be enjoyable. Like Dave the Diver. I said this more than once. Dave the Diver panders to me a lot. I really found it entertaining and fun. I didn't find it intellectually stimulating. Like, what I mean is, it didn't rock my world. Like, oh man, I had no idea game mechanics could be done this way or that way. Or, wow, like, that I could have never decided. That would be intellectually stimulating. And I have a bias. I more prefer not being pandered to and being convinced by being open-minded than having something served to me. So cue the, oh no, it's MAKU digressing about discovery and learning over like being targeted. It's like, yeah, that's me, all right. It's intellectual stimulation gives me a guarantee. It allows me to develop a fondness. So the fun comes from the learning, not from someone anticipating what I like. So if I say I enjoy this and then they deliberately give me something that I enjoy, that's great. I eat well when I eat well, right? Like, oh, someone says I really like deck building, or they know that I really like deck builders. Okay, well, let's make a deck builder with all the things that he wish was in a deck builder. It's like, here it is. I'm like, oh, it's really fun. It's really entertaining, and you were right. I really liked it. It is also very boring. Yeah, that's a phrase you don't hear very often, right? In my opinion, because the vast majority of people who say something that is fun is often, it can't be boring. For me, yes, it can be boring, despite it being entertaining and fun. Because it's boring intellectually. What's boring to me is if it's intellectually interesting, if you're learning something. What's fun and entertaining is different for me. What's fun and entertaining is the things I've practiced and determined is fun and entertaining. So playing a video game is fun and entertaining. Learning from a video game is exciting. So when someone does something experimental and they say, hey, you know, I saw that you play deck builders, but hey, would you care to try our game out? Because our game is going to flip what you think or conceptualize as deck building on its head. And like, sign me up. That's what I want to know. And yes, I could dislike a game and still find it intellectually stimulating. Because a game could be poorly executed on a novel idea. So then it could be incredibly unfun, but incredibly intellectually rewarding. And what happens in the long run? You get games like Death Stranding. You get games like MGS. They sit somewhere where people don't touch, because that's where niche comes in. You learn to like it because of its idiosyncrasies, not because you wanted what you wanted. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like for me, what's interesting about Duolingo, it most definitely make me learn language like I haven't done in a very long while. It probably would not have considered. This is very similar. Bunpro is doing it in a way that I obviously am already modifying it, so I wouldn't be doing it the way I do it. It'd be a combination. And that's what is very exciting about this. I enjoy doing this because there's an element of me that isn't in Bunpro. Like, I did not design Bunpro. If I designed Bunpro, here's a really weird question that someone might ask me, like, do you ever play or write or evaluate the things that you create? Not really, per se. Like, not the refined product. Because I do things because they're unrefined. I do things so I can make them better. So if I create something, it wouldn't ever feel like a finished product. So I would never advertise it as a finished product. I would advertise it like, hey, this is the best I can do now. But wait till next year. It'll be different. It kind of sounds like a live service model waiting to happen, honestly. And that's what I like about the idea of live service models. Not the other parts, because I know what someone's gonna say. Wow, MAKU, that's a really strong hot take. Like, so you like battle passes and stuff? I didn't say anything about battle passes. I was talking about the idea that a work is never done. Like, you know, the thing I really like about live service models is that when you play something for 10 years, when you go back to think about where it was in the first year, and those people like that process of constantly making the work not done, not for the money parts, but yes, it can be one and the same, certainly. I like how when you look back, it's like, dude, first year you could do like 2 activities. 10 years later, where do we start? It's like 100 things in the game. That's what I like about the whole live service thing. And I still do. That's why I play Persona. That's why I play P5X. Meanwhile, obviously P5X is, I thought about this and I'm gonna wait. We'll see who asks me in the future. There will be a time, and I've already set up a long digression for this. There will be a time when someone asks, what is the most underrated game you have ever played according to the internet? P5X. It has recently dethroned PSO2, and then PSO2 dethroned Neverwinter Online. Yeah, P5X is the most underrated game that I'm currently playing. It is in like the most polarizing dumpster of confirmation bias, like so review bombed to oblivion because of its concept of a gacha game, right? And then the inappropriate comparison between the principles behind a live service game versus even the fundamentals, not just the monetization, but the fundamentals of a live service game with standalone installments. Crazy. Anyways, sorry, let's go back. Wait. So what was in front? Oh, kata? What did they use? Method? I don't think so. Oh, right. Doing.
私の勉強の仕方はとても良い。
誰よりもあなたのことを愛しています。
両親のために温かいお茶を入れる。
リンゴとみかんを交換する。
リンゴとみかん交換する。Exchange apples for oranges. I could talk like 3 hours about that phrasing. To exchange apples for oranges. In a figurative way. Oops, not that.
あなたのパパはどんな人ですか？
And it's not papa. Heck, I think confirm works with that too, right? Oh no. I only got the show part, or not the show part. Mean part. That is confirmed.
問題の答えを確認する。
Okay. Oh man, that works for ring. Oh no. Yeah, that does. Wait, what? Oh, chime rings. Oof.
チャイムが鳴ったら家に帰ってきなさい。
太陽を直接見てはいけません。
都合が悪い日にちと時間を教えてください。
Interesting. So, let's do the grammar things and then we move to Antsihiro. We'll stack up until we get to the... Maybe it'll lax up a little bit in May. Okay. Alright, so what do we got? Despite. It was忙しい。忙しい。忙しいのに、はい、ゲームをし、
彼は忙しいのにゲームをしている。
ちょうど Why does ちょうど sound like something I should know? Oh, how to. Right, almost. ちょうどかける out ちょうど about to normalize なるべく No, that's as soon as possible. It's after or do. So, ところだ。
ちょうど出かけるところだ。
何時 around? What time did you come? 帰ってくる帰ってくるねOh, wait.
何時頃帰ってくる
10時から働き始めpass 始めた
9時になってから働き始めた。
公務員ねいや公務員は1年に1回What is that? ボーナスをもらう。
公務員は1年に1回ボーナスをもらう。
Oh, this is なるべく It's just vanilla なるべく Yeah, probably
なるべく早めに連絡してください。
Okay. Ashiru did finish running. Finish? Like, 走られる No? I don't think that's how that works. 終わる So 走り終わるのは走り終わるのは何時くらいで あ、でしたかでしたか走り終わる Oh no. Past tense. 終わらった。Oh. Wait. 終わった。
走り終わったのは何時ぐらいでしたか？
Okay. 4時間も、4時間も、what the, wait. No, wait, oh. Yeah, seat. Or, I guess a place, like, a place to sit. Isu. I forgot Sue had the... All I could think about is stool. Stool the whole time, but I didn't know Sue had the child character on there. Suni Suwari was sitting. Suwatte いた。座ってきた No. 座っていた。座っていたから、お尻が痛い。
4時間も椅子に座っていたからお尻が痛い。
Alright. 日本語は英語より話しににくい。Oh, にくい. Oh, that's a combination there. にくい is one of our N4 grammar points too.
日本語は英語より話しにくい。
話しにくい。にくい being harder to speak. Okay. I wonder if they're doing that intentionally. I kind of like it if they're doing it intentionally, where if they have the opportunity, like their N4 group, to have a higher tendency to put in N4 like grammar within the N4 block, and maybe even more so trying to be a little bit more liberal in incorporating various things, but mostly the newer concepts, like in a sort of pseudo graded way, but for grammar, pseudo graded grammar thing that would require me to ask a developer. It kind of, so it's nice to see it when you see it. I don't think there's enough observable data or sampling size to assert that that is what they're doing. It is very fun to see a double N4 grammar in the same example sentence, though. That is a great opportunity to process that multiple times. Seto, emphasis on occurrence. Each. Seto. 生徒どこにのごとに紙を渡した。Oops.
生徒ごとに紙を渡した。
Oh, wrong. Okay. 紙を渡した。紙を渡した。Okay. Okay. それをresult. それを得た。I know. Total, right? それをtotal してた。
それをとうとう捨てた。
捨てた。I stays high. それをtotal してた。Okay. 祝辞、後でお皿を、こう、笑わなくてはいけない。Oh yeah, I forgot to normalize.
食事の後でお皿を洗わなくてはいけない。
皿を割らなくていけない。And, okay. Okie dokie. It would be nice to have more time, but we don't have as much time. I digressed a little on the to omo, right? Omo point. Omo point is really important to me personally, both culturally and linguistically, I suppose. And tomorrow is lesson day, so we're gonna kind of move on over to Hanza Hero, see if we can do more character, take the character workload off of our list of reviews. So now it seems like the bottom line is Bunpro. We do the grammar and then the grammar stack on review, and then because of the way Hanza Hero can prioritize things, we can do the character and then the character stack. So that's kind of the bottom line now while managing Wanikani. The character stack in Hanza Hero will fade by the second or first or second week of May, which will then allow us to liberate some time temporarily to catch up on our vocabulary stack in Hanza Hero. And then Wanikani's stuff, and then Bunpro will then fade. The grammar stack will fade for us to catch up on the vocabulary stack in our practice month, which is June. Then Wanikani will mature, and not sure what, I haven't really decided what to do with Wanikani at the moment in July. That's kind of how we filled it in as of 2 weeks. This would be the conclusion of our second week, right? Yep. So today is day 13, right? Tomorrow will be the 14th, but we're including the day 1, so that would be 14 days. Okay. All right. That's a wrap for Bunpro today. If you're going to watch this there, arigatou gozaimasu. As always, feel free to follow along, pick up Bunpro for yourself, give it a go. You're always welcome to tell me how you're going about your Bunpro thing. Are you, feel free to share how you're juggling things. Obviously, no one has to always be juggling things, but it's kind of cool to hear how others, if they are in fact juggling things, how they're going about it. You're more than welcome. So until next time, 皆さんまたね。見てくれてありがとう. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna get up, walk around, take a quick bathroom break, and I will be back for Hanza Hero. Thank you.